Hello there and welcome to the patch overview video for Star Wars Empire at War Expanded Thrawn's Revenge 2.3.6. It's been quite a while since we've had a Thrawn's Revenge update, so there's a lot of changes to go over here. We're going to have this broken into mostly three rough parts. We're going to talk a little bit about the overall goals here, then we're going to have a section looking specifically at some space changes, and then a section looking specifically at some ground changes. This has been a very tactically focused update, so there have been full reworks to space and ground. All the stats for every unit have been completely redone and rebalanced from a new basic metric to determine them. So combat should feel a lot better, especially compared to 2.3.5, where there were some issues, especially with small ships getting spammed and being unkillable because of accuracy mostly. So a lot of that has been resolved and again recalculated from the ground up. So combat feels so much better now. But there have been some changes on the galactic level, some new mechanics and features that have been updated or changed there. The next update, 2.3.7, will have complete reworking of the era scripting and some changes to that. We were mostly focused on the tactical reworks for this build, so we won't get too deep into that. There will be a full change log for everything that we've changed on the Steam Workshop as well as on Mod Database and the download for the mod. There will be a link to both of those in the description. Alright, so here we are in Instant Action, which has itself received a few updates, a few visual changes, as well as support for more units. You're now able to actually spawn any unit for any faction when you're building your custom fleets here, but we're going to stick with standard. So let's bring in a couple of the new Mon Calamari ships. So on top of the gameplay reworks, there have been a lot of visual reworks. I did a video dedicated specifically to looking at the new models, but like Mon Calamari ships have been entirely redone, including the Viscount, which will probably pop in a minute. Things like the Dauntless have been redone, the Marauder. If you haven't played for a while, then most of the models in the mod have actually been redone to some extent. There are a few that are lagging behind, like the Majestic, where we have a model done, but we haven't had a chance to texture it yet, or the Executor, which is being fully reworked, but isn't quite ready yet. But yeah, so one of the major focuses of this build was to rebalance combat entirely. So every ship has been restatted from the ground up, from scratch, with the interactions between units changing a lot. So it's not just the visuals.
Upgrade in progress.
So you can see we have an Imperial 1, or an Imperial 2 and a Tector. Then we have a VSD coming in. So the pace of combat should be very different, or should feel a lot better. It's hard to describe any individual unit relative as like a buff or a nerf, because again, like the armor and damage matrices have been redone. The weapon damage, like the individual projectile damages have been redone. The shield and hull strength have been redone. So it's, again, hard to say that any individual unit is better or worse on its own. But you can also see we've done some new particles. The weapon effects are updated, generally based more on some of the Essential Guide to Warfare art, trying to replicate that style visually in space. So keeping things readable, but also looking good enough. Essentially what we want with combat, though, is to make sure that stuff is able to be responded to. So you can see, keep things going at a relatively decent pace. These are some fairly powerful ships we have going at each other here. Keep things going at a decent pace, but give you a chance to respond to damage so that you're not like throwing stuff in and then having it collapse immediately. You can see there's also some new units like the MC-30 making its return with a fresh model. One thing I will say is that one of the features in Thrawn's Revenge, or in Empire at War in general, which is kind of split down the middle, which people prefer, is with shield penetration, so whether bombs and missiles go through shields. This is something that with Thrawn's Revenge we've always developed around not having shields be penetrated. The explosions are something that is still being worked on. We've got some rough changes in, but that's going to be updated as we go as well. But yeah, so there are some people who strongly prefer shields or being penetrated or not. We developed a mod around not penetrating them. However, just yesterday, one of our players was messing around with the mods and discovered you can stack mods actually. So we are releasing a sub-mod alongside this release, so it'll be linked in the description as well, and I'm going to do a separate video explaining how it works, where if you prefer to have the shields be penetrated by missiles, so proton torpedoes and concussion missiles, then you will be able to enable that on top of the base mod, and that will be a thing. So for people who prefer that, that'll be an option. We're primarily balancing around shields not penetrating. For reasons I won't go into now, it's not really super relevant, other than the fact that that option is now available to people. And this sub-mod works for both Fall of the Republic and Thrawn's Revenge, Fall of the Republic being our Clone Wars mod. So that is a thing you can download. You can activate the same sub-mod for both, and then you can play with shield penetration. But yeah, so you can see combat feels a lot different now. The way fighters are set up is kind of staggered and different. You'll notice there are some lines on the fighter icons. These are all single, but there will be 1, 2, or 3 dashes indicating how many fighters are in a squadron. 1 dash is 12, 2 dashes is 24, 3 dashes is 36, and there can also be a dot sometimes, which means half a squadron. Let's actually drop in the Viscount. And this allows us to have the same amount of fighters, but fewer squadrons on the map at once. But this is the updated Viscount. There will be the 3-kilometer version coming soon. It is going to be a separate ship. We didn't have time to quite finish it off. It's hard to go into every change that has happened for tactical combat in this video, but a lot of work has gone into restructuring how all of that works. And there have been a few videos of a playthrough that I've been doing, which is a little bit outdated now, but which shows off that in a bit more depth if you would like to see what that's like. But if you'd like to play the mod for yourself and see it that way, there is, again, a link in the description. And if you haven't played the mod in a while, we really do suggest checking this build out. But yeah, so we're going to hop into ground and take a look at some of those changes. So here we go. Alright, so we are on a ground battle in the Thrawn campaign. These changes obviously apply anywhere though. So much like space, all of ground has been fully rebalanced and restatted from scratch. The Empire of the Hand for both ground and space is still in the midst of their own reworks. So we've mostly applied stats to them that that'll work for now, but they'll probably shift a bit more. But the first thing you'll probably notice is that the stormtroopers here, 3 of the squads, have the garrison flag. This is because they spawn out of this one squad. This is done just for galactic level performance reasons. Something we discovered a few months ago with Fall of the Republic is that each individual soldier gets tracked on the galactic map, which means that in a squad like this, this will cause as much lag as 36 Star Destroyers would. So you have a bunch of squads, and that is one of the biggest contributors to galactic level lag. So that's something that we've also shared with other mods, and I think AOTR in their recent patch took advantage of that information. But yeah, so all the ground stuff has been rebalanced in the same ways. We'll drop a few units here in similar ways to space. We won't go through everything, but you can see there's a new model for the Lambda. There's also a new model for the SPM-AT that Bob did. So if you've played Fall of the Republic, our Clone Wars mod, it's much more in line with what that's been like for the last couple of releases. Again, trying to get combat both in a good pace, but also have it so that you can react to things that are going on properly. One of the other major additions that we've done, in addition to the victory point that we added in Fall of the Republic for the last few releases, are these things called field bases. So most landing pads in the game right now will have a build pad here, which you can build a military field base, a support field base, or a guerrilla field base. And each faction will have some slightly different options. Right now the Imperials are all pretty much the same, but this is a fairly recent addition, and it's a thing that we're going to be adding a lot of content to as we go. Basically allowing some of the better parts of skirmish to exist in Galactic Conquest, and help the flow on the galactic level as well. So you can feel better about investing into an individual an individual battle because you have more tools to work with, essentially. So here you'll see that our military field base has spawned a couple E-webs for us, as well as Stormtrooper Squad. So in battle, you have more of a reason to go after different command points. We're actually just going to head over to this command point here. I think some of our vehicles can go over this path. No. All right. So this is going to be an infantry-only operation. It's a way that both lets infantry be more important in the battle and do more things that require infantry, while simultaneously not making it so that we have to make them too hard to kill, because there's always going to be ways to get new infantry in a battle if you're able to do proper map control and zone control. So what we're going to do for this one, we're going to get a support field base, and this is where you get things like medics and vehicle repair, but those are probably going to be removed from regular build pads. So the former specialists, if you played older versions of the mod, that can go through and repair your stuff, you can get from there. And some units like E-webs, they're only going to be available from field bases. It gives us some ways to put these units in places that make sense without either crowding up the build bars on the galactic level or making it feel like they're kind of wasting a pop cap slot. Because sometimes, like, it feels better to have a couple vehicles than to get like 5 different types of infantry. So I'd like to go and get the gorilla one if we can. But yeah, so we have these medics now. So this allows combat to be pretty infantry focused as like the core thing that you're working off of. But while still allowing vehicles to be powerful. One thing that was happening in previous releases is that with mixed squads especially, infantry were wrecking vehicles a bit too much. But now we think we've got a pretty decent balance for all of them. Units fill their roles a bit better. They tend to feel a bit better going up against each other. In the future, there are going to be more mechanical changes to ground level. So on top of just the rebalancing for units, so we're going to be doing stuff to kind of bring the orbital bombardment and bombing runs into line, different goals within tactical maps and missions and stuff, so that there's reasons to go to different parts of the map, while still making sure that they're not things that when you're invading a lightly defended planet that are like that you're forced to do. So we want map control to be a thing, but we also want to make sure if you are invading a planet that is not that important or where there's going to be back and forth fighting, that it doesn't slow down the pace of the game. And we think with field bases, that's one way we've been able to accomplish that pretty well. It looks like the New Republic has built one of theirs. Which one did they get? They built the military field base. So we've still got our guys over here. I just want to get the guerrilla field base, so we will do this. Alright, and we're fighting them back a bit. I will land these guys. So it's kind of like a counter to garrisons from the structures, because having some sort of dynamic stuff within ground battles is kind of important. Sorry about that. Having some sort of dynamic back and forth within ground battles is important. It's not quite the same as space, where you want to have, or where it makes more sense to have like these predetermined forces going up against each other. Ground works best as more of a skirmish style. In this way, we can have those mechanics. We can actually just go build a field base with these guys. But yeah, so when you're on attack or on defense, you're able to get the field bases. So there should be some back and forth fighting over the areas, which you can kind of see we're doing right now. And again, this kind of scales with the units that are already there. So it's a way to have that without making it always be there, so that a good ground battle can feel good and like it's important and like there's a lot going into it. Whereas a small ground battle is still just going to be a quick run to the one building there. But if you get invaded in a world where you only have like a Senate building or a barracks, you'd be able to go around the map, try to capture the landing pads, and you can fight off a much bigger invasion force using things like units rather than just trying to like camp behind a turret. Turrets haven't been super reworked yet. They're going to be coming in the future as well. But here we go. We've got our commando field base. So the Imperial units for this right now are Storm Commandos, but those will be changing in the future as different stuff gets worked out. So that should do it for a brief rundown of what's happening with ground combat. So ground and space, again, fully reworked, a fair amount of changes to the galactic level, a lot of visual updates, and this is just the beginning. There's going to be a return to some slightly more frequent updates. Again, next stuff we're going to be focusing on is some galactic level stuff for both Fall of the Republic and Thrawn's Revenge, as well as a few more model reworks. The Executor should be coming soon. There is that submod that I mentioned. That'll be linked in the description. I'll have another video describing what that does exactly. But hope you guys have enjoyed. Hope you're looking forward to playing 2.3.6. And for those of you who have already given it a try before checking out the video, hope you're enjoying it. Again, if there's any issues, we'll be doing hotfixes as necessary, then putting the file on mod database. But thanks again for watching, thanks for playing, and hope to see you next time. Bye, everyone.